From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome into the 301 Show. We have a great episode here for you today. The Twins have a potential pitching change here, we'll call it. Both the Timberwolves and the Vikings have a very head-scratching last week of games, as their results are just kind of confusing to this point in the season. And then the Wild continued their hot streak, but the Winnipeg Jets proved to be just that much better and continue to lead that division. Let's dive into all of that, plus some more here on the 301 Show. So, as I said, the Twins have a potential pitching change. This coming from Brady Farkas from Sports Illustrated. He was talking to Twins bench coach Jace Tingler and said that relief pitcher Griffin Jax could be moved to a starter this year. That is a discussion that they are having at this point in the offseason. And I just want to say that this move, if it does happen, I will be completely honest, I'm not a huge fan of. I like Griffin Jax in the bullpen. I understand why they potentially could be doing it, as the starters kind of fell apart at the end of last year with, obviously Joe Ryan was very much hurt. Pablo was up and down just the entire season. Seemed like Bailey Ober was your only consistent starter except for like 3 or 4 games throughout the entire year. You could count on him to let up like 9 runs in a game. Every, 5-10 starts. It was yeah. And then after that, the Paddock and whoever else, Louis Varland was not that good. Whoever else they had started, Semyon Woods Richardson. I thought he was pretty consistent, but he was a number 4 starter. But towards the end of the year, the starting pitching just fell off a cliff. And I can understand how they want just more consistent starters, but at the same time, you remove Jax from that bullpen, and that becomes very much a weak spot for you because Duran didn't have a great year. You traded for that guy from the Blue Jays, and then he didn't even last. I don't even remember what his name is. He didn't even last like a month with the Twins before he got sent down to the Saints. And I just think moving your best reliever, at least to start the year, moving your best reliever from last season out of the bullpen is a bad idea. Now, this is assuming that Johan Duran can't bounce back. I think that Johan Duran probably will bounce back, maybe not to the dominance he had in the 2023 season, but I think he will be at least better than he was last season. And just the bullpen wasn't super great either. But Griffin Jax this past season, he pitched in 72 games, which was his best most games pitched in. He beat the 2023 season by 1 game. He was 71 in 2023. His ERA was 2.03. His next best ERA in the MLB was 2022 with a 3.36. So he was 1.33 earned runs better last season than he was in his career best before that. He did have 10 saves, which were 6 better than 2023, which is his next most in a single season. Hits per 9, he gave up 5.96 hits per 9 innings. Again, his next best was 2022 with 6.99. So a full hit, he was giving up one full hit less per 9 innings last season than his career best before that. Strikeouts per 9, he was striking out 6.33, or strikeouts per walk. He was striking out 6.33 batters for every singular walk he had. Again, his next best season was 2023 with a 3.90 strikeouts per walk. So he almost doubled his strikeouts per walk going from 2023 to 2024. Again, last season was by far and away his best season. Now, can he replicate that? Maybe, maybe not though. So, I think personally I would leave him in the bullpen. But again, these analytics departments know way more about the inner workings of these players. They're also, with them every single day, the coaching staff and the analytics department. Um, but I personally think it would be a mistake to say to move him to be a starter. Now, let's move on to the predictions here, as once again we had 0 come off the board here for um, Target Field Talkers. I've got 3 more predictions. We will be getting some of these off the board here soon. Again, a lot of these are for this upcoming season. A couple of them are for the off season, so um, just have to be patient with these ones when these teams are in the off season. Again, massive shout out to the guys at Skor North um, for this basic idea. So my first prediction is that Carlos Santana will re-sign with the Twins on a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal that the AAV is cheaper than his original 1-year deal with the Twins. So if he will sign either a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal where the AAV is lower than $5.25 million. Second one, I'm trying to speak these three all 3 predictions today. I'm trying to speak into existence. So my second prediction, Griffin Jax will have more appearances as a reliever in 2025 than a starter in 2025. And then final prediction is the Twins will finish with at least 85 wins next season. So those are my 3 predictions. Santana will resign with the Twins. Griffin Jax will be a reliever for the 2025 season. And the Twins will finish with at least 85 wins. All right, let's go over to the Wolves' Den next. Let's look back on this. Again, as I've mentioned before, a head-scratching week for the Timberwolves. They went 2-3. They're currently on a 3-game losing streak. So on last Thursday, they played in Chicago against the Bulls. They were down by, I think it was about 10 points, 10 to 12 points in the third quarter. And they came back and won 135 to 119 with a 45-point fourth quarter. Scored 45 in the fourth quarter alone. That was a really good sign to see them, say, no, we are going to win this game. We don't quit. We don't want to quit. We believe we have a good team. That did carry over to the next game at home the next night against the Portland Trailblazers. They won 127 to 102. And then the wheels fell off the wagon for this last week. On Sunday at home against the Miami Heat, which again, surprise, surprise, Jimmy Butler did not play. He doesn't play in Minnesota anymore. Not just he doesn't play for the Timberwolves, but he just, for some reason, always has an injury when the Heat play in Minnesota. Now that didn't really matter as the Heat won 95 to 94. um, sealing the game right at the end of it. Now, they had a crazy ending the other day against the Detroit Pistons, which is good for the Timberwolves, as we want the Pistons to win more games this year because then we actually get their pick um, this year. So the better they do, the more likely we are to actually have a second first round pick this year. It might be the only first round pick. I can't remember if this next offseason was one of the picks we gave up for Gobert, but regardless, the Timberwolves lost to the Miami Heat on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, they went to Portland to play their first game of the NBA Cup. And they lost 122 to 108. And they were playing so poorly, I turned it off at the end of the third quarter. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Um, they just did not look great on Tuesday or Wednesday when they played in Portland again as a part of just a normal regular season game. The NBA Cup pool play games, I can't remember about the bracket. We may not have to worry about bracket games this year, but the pool play does count for the regular season record. So all of these games will always count for your record in the regular season. So on Wednesday they did lose again to the Trailblazers. It was closer this game. It was 106 to 98. Um, but they still lost, and yeah, they finished currently on a 3-game losing streak, and they still have to play one more game on the West Coast tomorrow night. They play tomorrow at Sacramento, and then they play on Sunday back home against Phoenix, and then those are their only 2 games before next week's episode. So they just have 2 games, which I believe they can get back on track against the Kings. They played the Kings earlier this year. I don't think the Kings are very good. I don't think they're as good as the Timberwolves are on paper at least. Um, so I do think, even though it is in Sacramento, I do think they can make it a salvage the road trip a little bit and try to get back on track here against the Kings, and then against the Suns. As long as KD is on that team, that is going to be a threat. They might not be a championship threat, but in any game they are going to be a threat here. So 12 games in, the Timberwolves sit at 6-6. They are third place in their division behind OKC and Denver. They are 11th in the Western Conference. So at this point, if the season were to end today, they would not make even the play-in tournament, much less just the normal playoffs altogether. So they are I think they are tied with the 10th seed, which is really stupid because 6-6 gets you like 5th in the Eastern Conference, which I am very hoping we actually get Seattle and Vegas to join the NBA, because then the Timberwolves would move to the Eastern Conference, which is a lot easier of a conference than the Western Conference, at least right now. So, yeah, they are 6-6 and in 11th place in the Western Conference. Points for per game, they are 16th at 112 points per game. Field goal percentage, they are sitting at 47.3%. That is 10th in the entire league. 3-point percentage, they are 37.5%. That is 7th in the entire league. From the free throw line, they are 78.7%, which is 10th in the entire league. So shooting wise, they are a top 10 team in the NBA. 10, 7, and 10. That's 10, 7, and 10, excuse me. That it would be a top 10 team in the NBA. Rebounds per game, they are pulling down 41.3 rebounds, which is 25th in the entire league. They are blocking their opponents 4.6 times per game, which is tied for 21st in the entire NBA. And their turnover differential took a hit. It was sitting at plus 4.3 last week. That took a hit down to plus 1.5, which is eighth in the entire NBA. So it still looks good. There's still some nuggets there, but they are, wavering here. And I will say, last week I was talking about how they're still trying to work out the team chemistry, and they are still trying to figure everything out. But my panic meter has moved up one notch. It's moved, if 1 is no panic at all, 10 is, dissolve the franchise at this point. I am sitting at like a 1.5, a 2 right now, because at this point, we have seen a big enough sample size to know, like, hey, they've played enough games here. Like, what are they doing? And I honestly will get to it in just here. I'd blame it more on the defense, because they just do not look like the same defensive team as they did last year. And that is not the cap trade. I don't believe that is a cat was the reason we were so much better defensively last year. Like, I don't believe that. Um, Defensively, their rankings they're sitting at 109.3 points against per game, which is sixth in the entire NBA. So that is not that bad. Uh, the field goal against percentage is 46.5%, which is literally exactly the middle. It is 15th in the entire NBA. 3-point percentage against is 34.4%, which is tied for seventh in the NBA. So they are very good from the perimeter shooting wise. And then rebounds against per game, they are 41.3, which is second fewest in the entire NBA. Blocks against per game is 5.1, which is, again, right in the middle, 15th in the entire NBA. So they have been getting blocked a lot in the last week, as that number has ballooned up from like a 1 or a 2 something, I think, last week, and then now they're up to getting blocked 5 times a game. So there are some things they need to work on to get better and back up to where they even were just last year. So, um, yeah, there are a lot of things to work on here. There's some good things. There's some really good things to look at with this team, but there's also some things to worry about a little bit. But I don't think the worry can be much more than like a 2 out of 10 at this point. So as for predictions coming off the board this week, and I will say this was just a historically bad week for me this week. So I said the Wolves will win at least 4 games in the next week. They did not. They won 2. I said Ant will have a triple-double in the next week. He did not. He obviously got way more points, enough points to get a triple-double in every game, but none of the other stats were there. And then I said the Wolves will sweep Portland in their next 3 matchups. That was incorrect. They went under 500 against the Trailblazers. They went 1-2, so that brings the Wolves Den season total to 2 correct predictions out of a total of 10 for 20%. So not doing the greatest there. For this week, my 3 predictions this week are that the Wolves will not make it out of their pool in the NBA Cup, so they will not make it to the bracket play. Ant will drop 40 or more points against the Sacramento Kings tomorrow night. So he will drop 40 or more in Sacramento against the Kings. And then the Wolves will go exactly 1-1 in their next 2 games. So they won't advance in the NBA Cup in-season tournament. Ant will drop 40 against the Kings, 40 plus against the Kings, and the Wolves will go exactly 1-1. Those are my 3 predictions for this next week. All right, now let's move on to the other head-scratching week of results in our Nordic Report. The Vikings win 12-7 in Jacksonville over the Jaguars. Total yards gained. This is actually, I think this will be a fun box score, guess the score experiment in a couple years. So if you showed somebody just this box score and you had them try to predict what the final score of this game actually was. So I'll give you some statistics here. Now, I did say what the score was, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys watched this game, so you would already know what the score was. But just listen to these stats. Total yards gained, Vikings 402, Jacksonville 143. First downs gained, Minnesota Vikings 28, Jacksonville Jaguars 10. Total plays ran, 82 for the Vikings, 43 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Time of possession, 42 minutes and 19 seconds for the Vikings and 17 minutes and 41 seconds for the Jaguars. So they just clearly could not convert, and it seemed like this game should have been more like 35-7 than 12-7. And I think that there was one guy on the field that did not um, get the memo that this game should have been a blowout, and that was Sam Darnold, as he threw 3 interceptions. And now one of them, it should have been 4 because one of them was called back due to a flag, but then it should have been back down to 3 because there was the one in the end zone that was actually dropped. And so the number of interceptions with 3 was actually correct. So he was just not great um, this week. Now, game ball, I don't have any honorable mentions here today. I guess the honorable mention will just go to everybody on that defense because the defense played absolutely outstanding today. So, honorable mention to the entire defense, but the game ball has to go to John Parker Romo, the kicker. And that I saw a tweet that said something like, "That's how you know it's an absolute barn burner when the long snapper and the holder get the actual game balls from the head coach." Kevin O'Connell gave a game ball to the long snapper and Ryan Wright, the holder. And if that doesn't tell you exactly what that game was, I don't know what will. So, I just kind of want to move on to the next game. Um, let's go over team rankings first. They move to 7-2 on the year, which is still second in the NFC North. It is also um, still the 5 seed in the NFC, as they are the top wild card seed. The Detroit Lions still hold the number 1 position in the division, so they remain as the 5 seed. Offense, 343.6 yards per game, which is 13th in the entire NFL. Points per game is 24.6, which is 10th. On third down, they are converting 41. They've converted 41 times out of 102 chances, which is 40.2%, which is tied for 10th in the entire NFL. On fourth down, they went 1 for 1 this last game, so that brings their season totals up to 4 out of 6 attempts, which is 66.7%, and that is tied for 7th in the entire NFL. As for the defense, again, they're improving a lot this game. Again, they only gave up a touchdown. The one touchdown was the one bad drive by the defense. The one drive where Mac Jones actually looked like a competent NFL quarterback. The defense, though, did hold Jacksonville, and they are now sitting at 310.9 yards per game, which is 11th lowest in the entire NFL. Points per game is 17.4, which is 3rd lowest in the entire NFL. Third down, Opponents have converted 38 times out of 113 attempts, which is a 33.6% conversion rate, which is eighth best, eighth lowest in the entire NFL. On fourth down, nothing has changed. They are still 6 for 17, 35.3%, but they did make their way up to second in the entire NFL. As for the kicking special teams, between Will Reichert, Will the Thrill, and uh, John Parker Romo, they are now at 18 for 20 on field goals. That is 90%. That is tied for 11th in the entire NFL. The longest kick is still Will Reichert's 58-yarder against the Houston Texans. That is tied for 7th in the NFL. And PATs, they obviously didn't attempt any, so they are still 23 for 23. As for this upcoming game, they are playing at Tennessee. They're playing in Nashville. The Titans are 2-7. Blake Cashman, Theo Jackson, and Ivan Pace Jr. were all full participants at practice. KOC said that Aaron Jones and Cam Robinson are trending to play. They look like they're going to play. And Sam Darnold was limited at this past practice, but should be good to go for this week. I just don't think that they are going to start Nick Mullins because he has just as many turnover issues, but he will. Sam Darnold is more likely to run plays that KOC wants and find the options that KOC wants. So I think Sam Darnold will be playing. Some unfortunate news here is J.J. McCarthy had to have a procedure done. It was not a surgery, but he had a swollen knee due to his rehab. And I was hearing some talks about potential backup plan for next year if you don't bring back Sam Darnold, which I think if Sam Darnold is asking for $20+ million for next year, I don't really want to bring him back. One guy I did see that is a free agent next year that I actually think would be great. Would actually maybe not a great option, but a good option to go maybe battle it out with JJ McCarthy or just be the starter if his rehab gets set back here is current Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback and former Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields. I think he was playing well enough at the beginning of this year and has played well enough in his career to he's not going to train wreck games, and he is he could potentially step in here and play at least decently well. Again, I don't think you would be considering yourself Super Bowl contenders with him. I don't think you're considering yourself Super Bowl contenders with Sam Darnold on your team right now. But obviously that all depends on asking price, what the contract looks like, and where if JJ McCarthy might be ready to go for next year. I don't know if he actually will be or not. And we will just have to see. I will say I do trust Kevin O'Connell and this Vikings coaching staff. So what if they think that he is ready, then I think that he will. I have full faith in him. I have full faith in the coaching staff. So I do think that'll be probably the right decision if they decide to sit him or start him at the beginning of next year. As for this week in our Nordic Report predictions, again, we are continuing the historically bad performance this week. I said the Vikings would beat the Jags by 13+ points. They beat them, but only by 5. So that was incorrect. I said TJ Hawkinson will score a touchdown this week. Nobody on the Vikings scored a touchdown, so that is also incorrect. And then I said the defense scores the same or more points than they give up. That was incorrect. They gave up 6 and did not score any. So that one is also incorrect. So for the Nordic Report, we have 3 correct predictions out of 11 predictions total, and that is settling in at 27% on the year. As for our 3 for this week, um, John Parker Romo will not miss a field goal against the Tennessee Titans this week. So he will remain perfect this week against the Titans. Now, I can backdoor this prediction to be correct if they don't attempt a field goal. This one is correct. So I do want to say there are multiple ways for me to get this prediction correct, but he just will not miss a field goal. Sam Darnold will throw a 40-plus yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson. So I think they're going to get him back on track here. Both players. I don't think Jefferson has scored a touchdown in the last couple weeks. But he will score a touchdown, and it will be Sam Darnold throwing him one. And I want to say if this is a screen pass that JJ runs for, ends up taking to the house for 40-plus yards, this also counts. The play, it will be a receiving touchdown, Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson, and yeah, it will be over 40 yards. And then my final prediction, again, I'm trying to be smarter than I was last week. I'm just going to say the Vikings will beat the Titans. I am not putting a score on it because whenever I do, I am wrong on that part of it. So just the Vikings will beat the Tennessee Titans in Nashville this week. All right, now saving the best for last, the Minnesota Wild came off a 2-0-1 week, where they on last Thursday, a week ago, they beat the San Jose Sharks 5-2. That was the Macklin Celebrini Sharks. He did score both of their goals. Macklin Celebrini did. Kirill Kaprizov had 3 assists in that game. No goals, but 3 assists. Marc-Andre Fleury stopped 24 out of 26 shots on him. And then Matt Boldy also scored 2 goals in the 5-2 win. At the, I think it's the Shark Tank. That might be the SAP Center now, but still call it the Shark Tank. Then the Wild headed south on Friday with a stop in Anaheim at Honda Center. I've been there. That was one of the best games, or I should say one of the most fun experiences I've ever had at a sporting event. Any sporting event was in Anaheim. Saw the Wild and Ducks play in Anaheim, and there was a bunch of other Wild fans there, and that's long story for another time. But yeah, no, it was a great environment for away fans, we'll say. But the Wild did win back-to-back games by a final score of 5-2. Both of them were 5-2. Kaprizov had 3 points as he scored 2 goals and had 1 assist. And then Gus Bus stopped 33 of 35 shots, so he was standing on his head last night, or excuse me, not last night, on Friday night. Then on Sunday, they went to play Bedard. They played the last 2 number 1 overall picks on the same road trip. Connor Bedard, and Macklin Celebrini. They did lose to the Blackhawks in overtime by a final score of 2-1. Gus stopped 20 of 22 shots on him, and they played decent. I just think they got off to a rough start, taking 2 early penalties. They took 2 penalties in the first 5 or so minutes, and it set the tone for the rest of the game, it seemed like. And then Peter Mrazek absolutely stood on his head, too, in that game, because the Wild did turn it on in the second and third period and with a ton of shots on him. And he was able to just, make enough saves that night, and they ended up winning. Um, the team rankings as of right now, they are 10-2-3 on the season for 23 points. They are second in the Central Division and second in the Western Conference, but again, behind only the 15-1 Winnipeg Jets. That is the best record through 16 games in NHL history, I believe. Um, so they are the Wild are the second best team in the conference behind only trailing a team that is literally making history as we speak. So, um, good for the Wild so far. But now let's see if we can actually catch the Winnipeg Jets. Hopefully we can. Um, in the goals for per game, they are sitting at 3.53 goals for per game, which is seventh. Goals against per game, they are only giving up 2.53 goals per game, which is third in the NHL. So they are averaging one full goal more per game than they are allowing. Um, Power play saw a little bit of an uptick. They're sitting at 20.8%, which is 12th in the entire league. Penalty kill saw an uptick too. Still not great, but it did see an uptick. It is sitting at 75%. I think it was at like 68% last week, somewhere around 68%. It was below 70% for sure, though. 75% is tied for 24th in the entire league. So again, one thing they need to work on is the penalty kill, because your goaltender is going to get tired too if he has to sit in a wall sit position for 2 minutes straight. So, um, one of your goalies is 40 years old, or I should say almost 40 years old now. So try to give the goaltenders a break and stay out of the penalty box. Uh, Adding three more stats here now for the um the team rankings for the Wild. Their team face-off percentage is 48.7%, which is 22nd in the entire league, so under 50%. Ideally, that'd be, over 50%. You were winning more than you were losing. Um, their shots per game is sitting at 28.8%, which is tied for 17th. So just again, right kind of smack dab in the middle of the pack. Um, Shots against per game, 28.4, tied for 12th in the NHL. So they are shooting it on goal more than they're giving up shots on goal. So that is also fantastic to see. Um, Gus Bus rankings, looking ahead at the starting goaltender for the Wild. His save percentage is sitting at 0.919%, which is eighth in the entire NHL. Goals against average is sitting at 2.27, which is fifth in the NHL. So he is, again, proven why he is a top 10, borderline top 5 goalie in the NHL to start this season through 15 games. We look ahead to this next week. They have 3 games this next week. They have a game tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. As I'm recording this on Thursday, November 14th. I will be attending this game. That's where I'm going right after I get done recording and uploading this episode. So that's why it is also, I believe it'll be a bit shorter of an episode this week. Then Saturday, they play at home against the Dallas Stars. So hopefully they can get some Norm Green revenge there. And Tuesday the 19th, they're playing in St. Louis. So they just have a quick 2-game homestand before they go back out on the road. As for predictions, again, continuing the historically bad week. I said Kirill Kaprizov will score a hat trick before next week's episode. I doubled down on that. Did not get that one correct. And I said the Wild will go 3-0 in their next 3 games. I was 1 goal away from that being a correct prediction, but the Blackhawks scored in overtime, so that brings my Rinkside Rundown predictions down to 4 correct out of 10 for 40%. So that brings my overall total predictions down to 9 correct predictions out of 31 that have come off the board. And that is good for a total of 29%. So that should tell you that you probably shouldn't take my advice if you were gambling on my predictions. Disclaimer, my predictions are not gambling advice. Please do not use my use my picks for the for your gambling amusement. First prediction is Marco Rossi and or Brock Faber will be one of the 3 stars of the game against the Montreal Canadiens tonight. Second prediction, the Wild will beat the Stars on Saturday. And Kirill Kaprizov will score a hat trick or an overtime winner before December 14th. So 1 month from now, he will score a hat trick or an overtime winner. Kirill Kaprizov will. So those are my predictions for the Rinkside Rundown. So we do thank you for joining us here on this episode of the 301 Show. Let me know in the comment sections where you agree or where you disagree. Also leave any ideas for anything you want me to talk about or any potential segments you want me to include in future episodes. Again, thank you for joining us on episode 8 here, and we will see you next time.